One of my biggest interests other than audio is gaming. Yes, I spend a lot of time gaming, especially MMO, online gaming. And as you can see here, what I am wearing right now, okay, and in fact, recording this session using this microphone here is this Kimura DUO from Antlion Audio, an American brand. So let's just have a look at the setting here, configuration, and where you can get it. So as you can see on screen right now, you can get this Kimura Duo easily from Amazon US, and it is priced at 150 US dollar. And if we look at the configuration itself, okay, what's inside the box, what you're gonna get is that, of course, the IEM itself here, okay, which is in fact constructed of very solid resin, transparent resin. And inside there's two driver. It is a hybrid, which is the primary two drivers being a single dynamic driver and a balanced amateur. I don't have a configuration what they are, but it is what it is. And the sensitivity rating for this Kimura Duo is in fact quite sensitive at around 125 dB of sensitivity and an equally very low impedance rating of 24 ohm, which means that this Kimura Duo is literally super easy to drive. You can plug it anywhere and it works. And perhaps the most important part is that this cable here, right? You see this cable? Very long, probably around 1.8 meters, I think. Okay. And it is in fact optimized for usage to attach to a PC rather than being mobile. And in fact, as you can see here, it comes with this Y split so that there will be one dedicated plug for audio only for listening and one dedicated plug for microphone. And if you have a device like here, I am actually using my Venture Electronic Megatron here, which have a microphone in, a single microphone in. So Kimura Duo also comes with this boxy adapter that you can see here, which will then combine these two, becoming an integrated unit. And another thing, wearing this Kimura Duo, as you can see here, right, the microphone is already attached here to the cable itself. There's another section here, all right. So one thing to observe is that first, the loop, the ear loop that you see here, it is in fact quite rigid. And in fact, the first time when I look at it, it kind of a bit scary because it was very stiff. But then again, after took a bit of training to use it, okay, there's a purpose to this. All right, this is in fact a memory-based cable, which means that once you loop it over the ear like this, all right, it will stay like that for as long as you don't move it around. So in fact, if you look at this carefully, the cable itself is not touching my ear. It's looping over my ear, but it does not rest on my ear. So what does it mean? It means that comfort. All right. I was able to use this Kimura Duo for up to 8 hours playing Fallout 76, okay, my favorite game, and even Elder Scroll Online with no element of fatigue at all because I do not feel the cable touching my ear at all. So definitely a huge plus. All right. So now, one of the biggest reason for me, again, like I mentioned earlier, to get this is because I am heavily into gaming. So what is important when we consider about gaming itself? The most important thing for me is that this IEM, this Kimura Duo, was able to project a very inclusive immersion sound, which will allow me to actually appreciate all the element of sound source coming from top, bottom, left, right, anywhere. And the precision of the source of the sound itself. For example, while actually shooting at the B screen, all right, I was able to actually track individual threat, all right, especially coming from around me. For example, the minions of the queen itself, all right, they hit very very hard. So it is absolutely essential to be able to track all those footsteps, all those scream, all those whatever threat that is coming from, being able to actually to respond to that sound. And I am happy to say that Kimura Duo absolutely excel in this element. So it has good immersion factor, it has good spatial projection, and it also has good neutrality and transparency to the sound itself. It does not add any kind of coloration. So in fact, when I am using it, right, as attached, as you can see here, I was actually able to enjoy the sound, everything from the music itself, from the element of action itself as how it was intended by the game itself. Perhaps the most surprising thing about this Kimura Duo is when it comes to music. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, one of the primary factor for me getting this Kimura Duo is in fact for gaming, purely gaming. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that this Kimura Duo is in fact quite suitable for audio as well, just listening to music. So let's just talk about the tuning itself. I did mention earlier that this Kimura Duo is being transparent. So what it means is that the tuning for this Kimura Duo is in fact something that I would consider as being neutral and transparent. It does not add any kind of coloration. So just perhaps a little hint of boosting in the lower frequency to spice things up, okay, but not too much. And in fact, when it comes to the dynamic presentation itself, I must say that it is quite impressive. It is in fact quite resolving, analytical, and energetic, vibrant and energetic. The way it handles the dynamic transient itself is quite adept. I would say that it is polished and mature, and but even the dynamic extension itself, it seems to extend really well on both end of the frequency. Does not matter whether lower frequency or upper frequency. I was able to hear good decays from both end of the frequency, an indication of good extension. And if I am to pick up any kind of cons for this Kimura Duo, perhaps I would say that it boils down to tone and timbre balance. You see, normally I would always prefer something which is a bit more analog sounding. To me, when I listen to this Kimura Duo, the focus of this Kimura Duo is more on being analytical and on clarity. So it does sacrifice a bit on that element of being analog because of that precision clinical sound. Okay, but it does not bother me too much because especially when connected to something like this Megatron here, Venture Electronic Megatron, which is very rich sounding, analog as well. So it helps to balance things up. But if you were to connect this Kimura Duo to something which is like a modern ESS sub-ray sort of tuning, it can sound a bit bright and even more a bit more digital sounding. So depend on what kind of source. So it is perhaps best to attach it to something which is a bit warmer. So now let's talk about the different frequency performance itself. Bass is definitely very or close to being neutral with this Kimura Duo, I would say. It does not exhibit, aggressive or excessive boosting in the lower frequency. The mid bass itself is fast, tidy, punchy, and in fact accurate, right? The mid bass does not overwhelm any other frequency, especially lower mid range or even sub bass. And in fact, the sub bass itself, it has a very fast rate decay. So instead of, let's say, smooth dispersal, Kimura Duo offer something a bit more on the crisper edge sort of dispersal for the sub bass. All right. And talking about the mid range, and the major theme, or should I say main theme for this Kimura Duo when it comes to mid range is more on transparency rather than anything else. So depending on what type of music that you're listening, it will present the mid range as how it is. All right. The vocal, the instrument, and everything, the attack itself, it is crisp. It is in fact, faithful to the intended sound. And moving on to the upper frequency, the treble itself. Now, this is where I think I should mention, if you are treble sensitive, Kimura Duo can be considered as a slightly brighter sounding unit. So meaning that the treble, depending on what kind of deck you're connecting it to, can appear a bit brighter than usual. Okay. But then again, it also offers good amount of energy and sparkle to it. And the best part is that despite being energetic and vibrant, it does not sound excessively offensive, or it does not sound offensive at all, at least to my ear, especially when we look at the Pina region all the way to the decay stage. So definitely, in fact, in my book, I would say that the performance of this Kimura Duo is on par with some of the higher end IEM which I have used so far. So let's just go straight to the point here. I, in fact, have spent so much time on this Kimura Duo and was able to put up this rating for each of the sound element which I have talked about just now. So the thing which I haven't mentioned yet is that soundstage and spatial projection. So this is perhaps one of the key element why you want to have Kimura Duo, right? Soundstage on this thing is wide, okay? It is one of the widest sounding IM which I have used so far. And rightfully so, it should be like that because this is intended for gaming and music, work, and of course, social media. And the spatial projection, I already described it in detail earlier on while playing games, okay? So it is definitely amazing. Resolution, imaging detail, and speed, top notch as well. Almost perfect at 9. And when it comes to synergy, power needs, and versatility, definitely, aside from this cable here, which you can easily swap with this detachable cable that you can see here, MMCX, by the way, all right? So I can just simply detach this and attach this IM to my this Venture Electronic standard DI copper cable. In fact, it suits very well with copper cable, and I was able to use it anywhere I like without the microphone here. And in fact, the sound impression which I have mentioned to you just now was primarily based on my experience while using this. Okay, so I would say that versatility is definitely top notch as well. It is quite comparable to Moondrop Blessing 2, B2, which is quite popular. So what I'm trying to say is that, all right, the key differences between those two is that, in fact, first, perhaps the mid-range. I would say that B2 focus a bit more on being mid-centric, whereas this Kimura Duo is a bit more less forward sounding when it comes to mid-range. And in fact, when it comes to technical aspect of it, the resolution, the imaging, the speed, all right, and the presentation of the technicalities itself is pretty much similar, except that, right, just imagine this. You have Moondrop Blessing 2, B2, but you have wider soundstage now and with better spatial projection. The next comparison would be against another Moondrop, which is the Blessing 3, B3, which I have tested recently. And the funny part is that, in fact, if I were to compare, right, the impression that I have between this Kimura Duo and B3, I would even say that they are pretty much similar sounding, the way they are being tuned. It is, fairly close to being neutral, right? Transparent, resolving, analytical, and in fact, both of them not so much on being analog sounding. However, again, I think perhaps when it comes to the technical element, this Kimura Duo again would have the upper hand when it comes to soundstage size and the spatial imaging itself. So definitely another element of surprise to me, at least. All in all, I would say that this Kimura Duo is definitely a very solid package when it comes to gaming, especially for gaming. No doubt about it, okay? But perhaps the best element, the biggest surprise which I got from the Kimura Duo is that how well it handles audio itself for just listening to music. In fact, I would say that if somebody were to ask me what kind of IEM which I would actually recommend when it comes to all these things, gaming, Discord, social media, and work, I have no hesitation recommending this Kimura Duo from Antlion Audio.